In October 2023, the Himalayan state of Sikkim was still reeling from a massive natural disaster. Devastating landslides and glacial lake floods had just ripped through the region, burying entire communities in silt and completely wiping out critical infrastructure. Life was slowly returning to normal, and the roads to North Sikkim had just reopened to the public. That's when Janardhan and his wife Deepti arrived on a fully loaded Dominar 400 motorcycle, eager to kick off the first leg of an ambitious all-India tour. But almost immediately, their logistics hit a wall. After riding 700 kilometers over 3 days, Janardhan developed severe pain in his right shoulder, dropping their riding pace to a crawl. From there, the obstacles piled up. The couple had a strict 3-day military permit to enter and exit the North Sikkim zone. As they climbed toward Guru Dongmar Lake, sudden heavy snowfall and black ice blocked the route entirely, forcing the army to shut down the road ahead. Their meticulously planned itinerary collapsed. With the clock ticking on their 3-day permit and the weather rapidly deteriorating, the couple's scenic tour morphed into a rushed, panicked retreat back down the mountain. When Janardhan and Deepti packed their bags to leave the town of Lachin, their hotel manager explicitly warned them to stay put. He told them heavy rain was incoming, and attempting the mountain roads on a motorcycle carried a massive risk of getting caught in a landslide. They ignored him and left anyway. By 5 p.m., they reached the Tung checkpost, soaking wet. An army officer there gave them a direct, final warning: avoid the forest route due to severe road damage and wild animals. He instructed them to stick to the unpaved main road and ride slowly. But Janardhan and Deepti had linked up with 3 other riders on the mountain. Overconfident and determined to reach their hometown of New Jalpaiguri that night, these riders dismissed the military's advice entirely and pressured the couple into following them deep into the forest shortcut. A haunting rarely starts with a sudden apparition. It usually begins exactly like this, with a sequence of human choices pushed past established boundaries, directly into hostile territory. Within kilometers of entering the forest, the recent flooding scrambled their navigation. Cell service vanished and digital maps failed completely, steering the convoy onto an unmarked, isolated trail. The physical environment degraded rapidly. The path narrowed to barely 5 feet wide, choked with mud, as torrential rain and lightning hammered them in the pitch black. Exhausted and in agonizing shoulder pain, Janardhan pulled over at a lone house off the trail. He approached the dark door and knocked, desperate to pay a local for a night's shelter. Getting no answer at the front, he walked around to an open back window. Inside, he saw an older woman sweeping the floor in dead silence. Her face was entirely white, completely drained of blood. When Janardhan asked for a room, she didn't speak. She simply turned and glided backward, floating in the air straight into the shadows.
Faster, more urgent screamed and sprinted back to the motorcycles in a sheer panic. Scrambling to start their engines, the group was fleeing a hostile presence that had revealed itself. The riders formed a tight convoy, squeezing their bikes together to ensure no one was isolated, and desperately throttled forward in search of a path back to the highway. At 12:30 in the morning, miles from any town or lighting, they passed a bizarre sight: a man standing silently on the side of the mountain trail, washing a scooter with a bucket of water. They ignored him and kept riding for another hour. Then they passed a distant roadside waterfall, and standing right next to it was the exact same man, still washing his scooter. This map shows the geography itself trapping them. Their path forward was bending into a closed circuit, looping them through the exact same physical space. And they weren't alone. Sitting perfectly still on the mountain peak above was a dark, featureless figure staring down. This entity was capable of warping the geographic reality of the mountain, manipulating the terrain itself to ensure the riders could never leave. In an absolute panic, Deepti pulled out a portable speaker and blasted the Hanuman Chalisa, a Hindu devotional hymn, at maximum volume. As the audio cut through the dense trees, a distant light suddenly pierced the darkness. The loop broke, allowing them to finally locate a military checkpoint. But they still had to survive Sevak Road, a final 34-kilometer stretch of deep forest. The moment they entered it, violent, unnatural winds kicked up, forcing the riders to push their motorcycles past 100 miles per hour just to stay upright in the storm. Then, illuminated in the headlights, a figure appeared, standing directly on the asphalt. It was a man with a dried-out face and thick rope coiled around his torso. His neck dangled completely broken to the left side as the 2 motorcycles tore past him in the dark.
Breaking the spatial loop hadn't ended the haunting. On Sevak Road, the manifestations moved from the forest shadows directly into the headlights of the motorcycles. The riders survived the forest and crashed at a hotel in Siliguri, miles from the mountain. But the safety was an illusion. Hours later, Deepti woke up screaming, pointing at the exact same hanged man from the road, now standing right next to Janardhan's bed. To understand exactly what entity attached itself to them, you have to look at the specific geographical path they took. That dark, unmapped forest trail cut straight through the Sikkim flood zones. Just weeks prior to their ride, catastrophic flooding had completely wiped out entire villages along that specific route, burying countless people in the mud. The entities on the mountain were the restless echoes of a massive, recent tragedy. Janardhan and Deepti rode directly into a mass casualty zone and suffered the psychological consequences simply because they refused to listen to the people warning them to stay away.